Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Strategy Talks and Mechanic Guide series. In this episode, I wanted to talk about the Duck of the Hour, Cresselia. Now, typically I save these sorts of talks for my Pokemon review series, and honestly, I might go over some of this stuff in my Pokemon review series down the line. But I wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of players are evaluating this Pokemon very, very wrong. I would argue the entire community has written off this Pokemon in a way that they aren't necessarily seeing its strengths, and even people that do see its strength are still evaluating it incorrectly. And I wanted to talk about why I have the thoughts that I do about it after running some simulations and comparisons of my own. Because I think that there's a lot more potential here, and I think that a lot of players are missing out on that and giving poor advice because they are writing off the value that this Pokemon provides. Now, why do I think that? I think this comes about from an over-evaluation of staying 100% topped off. I think people think that matters more than what it actually does, and I want to address that. Now, this video is not to say Cresselia is the best Pokemon in the world. Go out and hunt one. You'll drive yourself mad if you try to hunt a legendary in this game outside of their legendary events. That's just the way it is. You're never gonna, you'll see them occasionally, but it's extraordinarily rare. In my entire time playing the game, I'm a day one player. I've encountered 2 wild legendaries my entire time playing this game. So, and that's just encounters. That's not even catches. It's basically impossible to catch a good one outside of their legendary events. And the legendary event is now over. So if you don't have one, then this video is not for you. This video is made for the people who caught phenomenal Cresselias. And people online, they go to the internet and ask, this Pokemon, I caught this Cresselia, is it worth investing? And then a lot of people say, Cresselia is kind of meh. Don't invest it. Invest it, but use it as like a side grade to your healer for supplemental healing, because really your main healer should be stronger. I think those people are wrong, and I want to talk about why I have those thoughts. Now, why do people write it off? It's just because it's got a weaker skill as far as energy goes. But there's a whole other aspect of this skill that is being completely ignored when you evaluate it just as an energy for everyone Pokemon. There's a whole lot more here that people are missing out on. And I wanted to try and just quantify how can we actually evaluate this berry burst component of the skill. Because energy is easy to evaluate, and if we evaluate it in that regard, yeah, it's not a good Pokemon. You shouldn't be investing it just for the healing, but maybe you should. Because when it comes down to it, how do we gain value from our healer? That's a question we have to ask ourselves when we consider evaluating a healer. And it really comes down to this whole concept, and I just threw up some numbers here. These numbers are kind of arbitrary, but they have a meaning to explain the concept. So, let's say you have 5 berry Pokemon, and just have them on the team, and they use the basic energy curve. If we use that as a baseline, as the value of a Pokemon on the team, they're each producing 100% of what a berry Pokemon can produce. The value per Pokemon is 100%. Now, if we throw a healer on the team, the healer is going to allow them to have a stronger energy curve. They will produce more than what they could without the presence of a healer, up to like 125%. And if you get it to 125%, then it reaches a breakpoint where even if the healer is producing no value themselves, then the value per Pokemon is still a flat 100%. Now, in practice, you don't actually see 0% as the number, because the healer does actually produce a little bit of berries themselves. Now, in practice, this is like 33% of what the berry Pokemon are doing, probably a little bit less, but just because you're looking for different sub-skills. But overall, after you apply that boost to the healer itself, you only really need like a 14% boost to break even, and the healers in this game provide much more of a boost than 25% or 14%, as you will see later in the video. Now, berry Pokemon... Now, the reason why we need to evaluate it differently than a typical healer is because it's not providing value through just the boosts that are coming through the team. It's not providing boosts through just this way. It itself is providing strength. And even if we lowball that to 60%, you can see that 60% of the value of a berry Pokemon, then it drops the needed strength in how much it needs to boost the rest of the team by pretty significantly, by about 4% from what it is over here. And if you assume to be 75%, it drops it all the way down to just a 6% to break even. The opportunity cost of running a Cress over a different healer is significantly lowered comparatively. It doesn't take as much healing for it to output the same amount of strength through the whole team. And really, the whole team's strength is what we should be caring about most, not just it doing its single job. If you focus too much on one job, you miss things. And Cresselia is providing strength itself through the berry burst aspect of its skill. Now, how accurate are these numbers? Honestly, I think these are underestimates for how much value a Crest is providing. I think a Crest can provide more strength than just 60% of what a berry specialist can provide, and 75%. And to show that that is an underestimate, I actually threw together a couple teams here. This is like the worst possible situation for Crest. No flying I don't even know why I put him at a gold. That was kind of a mistake. But no favored berries. Running alongside Doduos that are level 1 because Flying Berry's the weakest, alongside Bug, and it doesn't have Favorite Berry. How much strength is it outputting? Well, level 30, way lower level than the max in the game. It's producing 18,000 strength, 18,984. If I compare that to a level 60 Gardevoir on its own, with the skill level max as well, then it's producing like 10,000 strength. Which is, like, less than 66% of... Oh, whoops, wrong team. That is less than 66% of what... This is more than a 66% boost from the Gardevoir, which, if we use 45% for the healer up here, this is a 66% boost from that. So, realistically, these are lowball, very lowball numbers of the difference needed. So, the boost needed to provide to the rest of the team to gain value from the Crest is probably closer to 3% to break even. Significantly lower than what we have up here for the healer that isn't providing that much strength on its own. Now, how much does energy itself actually matter? This is something that I wanted to challenge in this video. Energy does matter, yes, but it matters that you're not hitting 1 energy or 40 energy. Because, realistically, these other numbers up here, yes, they're a decrease, pretty significant decrease, 22%, but you're not sitting at this value the entire day. Realistically, if your healer is having a rough day and you're sitting at this for a couple hours in the middle of the night before you wake up, a 22% decrease in productivity, yes, that sucks, yes, that hurts, but it's not going to feel as significant as, say, a 55% decrease to productivity, even if that 55% is for a couple of hours. And from the next category up, they're never more than like 15% maximum between the energy brackets until you hit the very bottom. As long as you're not bottoming out, you're doing semi-okay. Now, obviously you want to mitigate it altogether because these are significant drop-offs in productivity, but it's not necessarily that you need to stay above 80% like a lot of people suggest. You can still do really well if you're willing to make trade-offs, even if you're operating at these lower energy levels for a little bit of the day. Now, why do if I actually make these comparisons and make some production comparisons to see what the energy curves are, RandomX actually has a really good tool for evaluating an energy curve analysis. If you throw it in here and just throw in like your sleep session, you wake up, it goes throughout the day, then you sleep. This is what the baseline energy curve looks like if you account for just a couple meals. Roughly these numbers, the numbers may vary a little bit depending on your sleep schedule, depending on when you choose to feed your Pokemon meals. But overall, it's not going to vary too much from this average. So I used that as a no healer average. Well, then I made the comparison of if I run a couple different Cresselias with 11 strength, made comparisons to see what the average boost that I got from each one of those on a conservative curve for 3 different Cresselias and 2 different Gardevoirs. The first Cresselia I used was the one that you catch by default with just investing it up. if you don't even hunt for a better one. One that I deemed quote usable with just skill trigger M and help speed M, and then like the best potential Cresselia, and then compared it to a usable Gardevoir and the best potential Gardevoir as far as procs per day goes. And I did have it set to 0 energy, so there wasn't any that we accounted for the more energy aspect of things. And when I compared those modifiers, you can see that the Cresselia still does a pretty decent job while also providing strength itself. 20% boost with the base Cresselia, which is significantly more than the 10% that we were looking for back here. In fact, it's even more than the 14% with the base healer value idea. So it still is providing a boost to the team. A usable one coming in at like 28%, and like the perfect one being 34%, not that far off from the quote usable Gardevoir. And compared to the base Cresselia, a perfect Gardevoir is only boosting by about 17%. And if you are running it with good camp ticket boosts the number of procs. It doesn't necessarily boost the value gained by the skill. In fact, the percent actually gained comparative to the worst healers actually benefit more from good camp ticket because of how this whole energy curve system works. So the perfect Gardevoir, and actually the usable Gardevoir as well, benefit less comparative to the base Cresselia, down to only like 14%. Now, why do I mention these numbers? Well, if you make the same comparison of 100% berry Pokemon with Cresselia as the base, if you assume that to be now the new average per Pokemon of 100%, having this as the baseline or this as the baseline, if you use the 75 or 60%, then suddenly having to boost those percentages for having one less Pokemon on the team, you need to boost them by quite a bit more in order to provide the value per Pokemon, the same value per Pokemon on the team. Coming in at like 127%. Actually, I forgot what the math here was, because we need to compare to that. Give me a minute here. I want to make sure my math is correct. I don't want to be misleading anyone. So this is a 26% boost from the base, based off the quick math that I did on my side monitor. Compared to back here, we needed a 25% boost. That's very similar, but you can see that it's about the same needed. But it's harder for them to get that because now the Cress is providing healing as well. And if you compare to this, they're not comparing versus none anymore. You're comparing versus even base Cresselia, which, in order to break even with the 0%, you need a 26% boost. And if I compare the 127 versus the 110, this is a 15% boost. Which, you know what? It can work, but not if you're running good camp ticket. You don't even break even. It's better. It's probably better to run just another berry Pokemon and deal with the fact that your energy is going to be a little bit lower because opportunity cost is there. And the Cresselia, it may not be healing perfectly. It may not be keeping your team topped off. But the gains that you'll have from being topped off are lower comparatively to what you're operating with by running the Cresselia. So you don't necessarily need another healer. If you run another healer, you're probably going to be wasting energy, wasting that team slot when you could be getting something that provides more value overall. Now, a few counterpoints that I could think to this. First is meeting ingredient threshold. So a Cresselia, yes, it's providing more strength to the team, but it's not providing more procs or more ingredients used to meet the thresholds for creating certain meals. Because our base healer is going to provide more healing. It's going to help ingredient specialists too. We've only been evaluating from raw strength analysis, but if we compare a team with, this is why I created these two teams. This team is a Gardevoir on a cooking team. Now, this team is one that you wouldn't want to invest in, but you can see that it's just barely making the Clodsire Eclairs 3 times a day. And you're getting about 10, 9, 8, 4 excess per day. If I compare that to the Cresselia, 9, 8, 7, 3, it's making one more ingredient per day by running the Gardevoir instead of the Cresselia. But the Cresselia, once again, is providing strength through its own main skill, whereas the Gardevoir is not. It's providing the healing, and the healing exclusively. And that's providing one more ingredient per day. Could that make or break if you're actually going to make the meal all consistently? Maybe. But it's not as important because the time that your ingredient specialists are missing, if you're running them throughout the night, then the time that they're missing that energy is in the middle of the night when you're not collecting from them, which means they might be hitting sneaky snacking, and that makes it more difficult. Now, the biggest point that I can see against this is team rotation. I should have put this in a different order. If you're rotating the team, there is more value in having more energy. But I find that a lot of players that are playing this game aren't necessarily doing that. Consider how much you're actually checking the app and checking your Pokemon's energy and rotating off the Gardevoir because you have enough energy. If you find that you do that, then this may benefit you a bit more because you're not going to run into the whole energy problem of maxing it out and then not needing more energy. And additionally, you're rotating the ingredient specialists. You're not gaining the energy from the night, so that matters more. So there are people, a lot of players actually, that are min-maxing the game that could use more from running a Gardevoir alongside of Cress, but I wouldn't suggest using them together in tandem all day side by side, because the gains overall, even in terms of ingredient count, are very minimal. Very, very minimal. Even when it comes to counting for meeting ingredient thresholds. Additionally, energy death spirals. This is something that's talked about a lot when talking about an inconsistent healer, but honestly, the same sort of idea applies. The helps that are going to be missed by having lower energy are the ones that happen in the middle of the night. Especially if we look at the curve. This is the curve for the base Cresselia. The only time that you have this low of energy, and most of the time that you only have this low of energy, is while you're asleep. You're not collecting at that point, most likely. So, the energy death spiral really isn't that much of a thing. Because, sure, you may be missing these procs, but it's still probably going to fill its inventory, and you're still probably going to collect those procs in the morning. So it doesn't really matter all that much. It can happen, but it takes a long time for that energy to go away. If you're having an energy death spiral, it's probably more just bad RNG than what you think the effects of bad energy are actually doing to you. So, the next is for team, or the reliability. As far as reliability goes, I made a video about the RNG's impact and mitigating RNG's impact, and I'll link that in the description. But realistically, if you want more reliability in how often it's going to proc, and you don't want to leave too many things up to RNG, changing the value of the individual proc by a set amount isn't going to really make that big of a difference in how often it stays within the expected outcome. The biggest thing that does that is by changing it so that you have more procs. More procs, really, is the thing. More helps and higher skill rate. The value of a single proc doesn't actually impact the reliability that it brings. And I'll link my source for that. It's one of my own videos. I talked about it very in depth in that video. I'll link that in the description. So, if it's procking the same amount, it's going to have the same amount of reliability as a Gardevoir at the same amount. The only difference is you can rely on the Gardevoir to produce more strength, more energy. You can rely on the Cresselia to produce this much energy. And if you have a Cresselia that procs a lot, it may actually have more reliability than a Gardevoir that procs a little bit, or that procs a little bit less, but has a stronger energy because it has a higher energy curve, or because it has a higher skill level value. The Cresselia may actually be more reliable at keeping your team at the energy you're expecting it to be than the Gardevoir is, because it's proccing more if you have better sub-skills on it. So, if you have a really, really good Cresselia, it may actually be more reliable. And then Gardevoir synergies, running Gardevoir with Cresselia. This is another point that I can see of doing something like this and using it just as a supplemental healer. because it synergizes with Gardevoir, obviously, as a Psychic type. But my counterpoint to that is there are plenty of Psychic types in the game. Unless you're trying to make a full Psychic team to really maximize it just for Lapis, I don't think there's really that much of a point of choosing Gardevoir over, say, unless it's what you have. If it's what you have, then use what you have, use what the game gives you. But there are other Psychic types in the game that you can synergize with Cresselia, and you don't necessarily need a lot of Pokemon to make Cresselia's main skill really that much more powerful. Even just having 2 or 3, with how much more it's proccing than other Berry Burst Pokemon, even if you just have 2 or 3 of the same species, or same type species, it arguably can actually output more or like the same amount of strength as a Mimikyu or Braviary with just 2 or 3. You don't need a full team. And that's another myth that I wanted to debunk with this, is that, oh, you need a lot of Psychic types for it to be worth it. I think it's worth it even just running on its own and just try firing same type species of just 1, because that's still a lot of extra berries that you're gaining from Cresselia's main skill that a lot of people are writing off. Now, that's really all I have to say about it. I think that the Pokemon's got a lot of value, and I think a lot of people are writing it off because they don't consider the opportunity cost. And a lot of players also are heavy into the team rotation. A lot of min-maxers, especially the people that are guiding other people, talk from their personal experience, but I don't think that's everybody's experience playing this game. I'm a pretty heavy min-maxer, but I have to consider my situation, and I don't like to rotate the team all that much. And not everybody does. So, for people that don't rotate the team that much, I think Cresselia is a phenomenal option if you have a good one. I think a lot of players have been ignoring it just because it's not the best healer, which is true, but it's got less opportunity costs. So consider more than just the healing. Consider other aspects. And you know what? If you've got a good Cresselia, if it's what the game gave you, then invest. Because you never know what the game is going to give you, and you might not ever find that golden Gardevoir. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about it. If you have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I try to talk about things like this before, and a lot. And, yeah. Down in the description, I have a link to the Discord. Come join us, hang out, talk about all things Pokemon, Sleep, and the like. I recently added the join button. If you are financially able to do so and wanting to support me in that way, then go for it. Click that button. And as always, I thank you all for watching and hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.